A question that I get asked pretty often in person and occasionally through emails from my blog too is how did I even get started as a blogger? And like, how did it become a full-time thing? And it wasn't really a very intentional choice for a long time. I actually started my first blog. It was a Blogspot blog, and it was called Emmy's Booze and Rars. And that blog got its name from my Etsy shop that was called Emmy's Booze and Rars. And it was this Etsy shop where I made these little like plush stuffed animals that were different monsters, basically like little like one-eyed creatures or two-headed creatures, but they were like cute. They weren't like scary monsters or anything like that. I had just kind of like taught myself the very basics of sewing at like 18, and so I enjoyed making those little cute monsters and was trying to sell them on Etsy in hopes of, making that kind of like a little side hustle type of thing, or I guess maybe in like my wildest dreams making it a full-time job someday. One of the things that I realized pretty quickly with having an Etsy shop is that you can't really just like make stuff and list it and get sales. I mean, you can, but not gonna get nearly as many sales as if you like really work to get the word out about your little business, And so I started kind of like looking around to like, what do other Etsy shop people do to draw people to their shop, or just to like make people know that their company exists, because I didn't really want to like write a bunch of stuff on like my Facebook and Twitter and try to like convince my like personal family members and friends to buy from me. Like I didn't want like pity purchasing or that kind of a thing. I wanted to find people who were like actually truly interested in what I was making, but I didn't really know how to go about doing that. So I started looking around at what other people were doing on Etsy that was like successful for them. And one of the ideas that I came across was people made blogs for their shop. I had like a tiny bit of experience with like a Zanga was a thing when I was in middle school, and so it's like, okay, I'll give blogging a try, and I made a Blogspot blog. And if you have an Etsy shop and you have some products, you kind of quickly like share what your products are, and then it's kind of like, okay, there's one blog post, and I guess I can do a new blog post each time I make a new monster, but other than that, how do I keep making new content for this blog that doesn't feel super repetitive? And I also just didn't want the whole thing to be like, buy this, buy that. I wanted it to be more authentic and have more to say. I kind of, again, started looking around like, what are other people doing with their like Etsy shop related blogs? And I saw that they would write about other Etsy shops to kind of help them out, but also to have content. And so I started doing that. I started making some blog posts about other Etsy shops, just kind of ones that I thought were interesting. Then I found some Etsy groups where they would do these trade events. And so instead of exchanging cash, you could just barter your items for their items. And so I started making some trades with people. I would send them a monster and they would send me, candles or jewelry or whatever it was that they made. I thought that was like a neat way to get some stuff and get to try out some Etsy shops without having to exchange cash. So I did that, and then I would write about the products that I had traded. Once I got my blog started getting some like real growth and some traffic, I think it was somebody had suggested it to me. Like, how about we don't do a trade for like my products and your products, but you write about my products as like promotion for me. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And so I did that, and that was like really fun and exciting to me. And then I started having like actual companies, bigger brands, not Etsy shops or other small businesses, just finding that I was doing reviews of items on my blog and asking me if they could send me stuff. And when I first got an offer, it was from like a t-shirt company that made like graphic t-shirts, and I thought that was cool because my boyfriend was of like the age and whatever where he was wearing graphic t-shirts and stuff at that time. But I really thought like, there's no way they're actually gonna send me t-shirts from this real company to review. But it's like, I guess what is the harm in like trying? So I just shared my address, and they really did send me the shirts, and I reviewed them. And then once I did a couple of reviews like that, then other companies started recognizing that I was open to working with companies in exchange for being sent products. And so it just kind of went from there. And then we started doing giveaways, and the giveaways helped bring in more people to my site, helped me get more followers and stuff, because they would follow me for a chance to try to win the prizes. And that was kind of the basic start of it, was just I fell into it from Etsy. But even though I had started to work with some real companies, and it kind of morphed already from being just about Etsy to being somewhat of a review blog, I still saw it as just a hobby. I want to say for a couple of years, I kind of forget at this point. What really shifted it for me was seeing another blogger say in a like blogging related group that they were doing it as a full-time income. And that really blew my mind because at that time I didn't know that blogging could be a full-time job. This was kind of back before I had heard of anybody like making a living on YouTube and that kind of a thing. And so I just had no idea. And as soon as I heard that some people were making it into a job, I was like, I would love to do this as a job. And it also just kind of happened to coincide with difficulty I was having with college, because I had been in college and I felt like I needed to pick a career path. And I'd switched majors a couple of times, but I just didn't feel good about any of my options. But I also couldn't think of like, what else am I gonna do? Like I didn't feel like I really had a calling or a real passion for any particular thing. But I had really enjoyed this hobby of review blogging. And so it's like, gosh, if I could turn that into something that pays my bills, then I would love to do that. And so once I realized it was possible, I talked to my boyfriend about that, and he's super awesome because he like let me drop out of college, and he like exclusively supported us for a while I like completely dove into the deep end with trying to put all of my time and attention into the blog to see if I could grow it enough to where I could make a living at it. And it took a while. I think it was like 2 years before I got to the point where it was like roughly equivalent of like a full-time minimum wage job at that time. But we live in a pretty low cost of living area, and it's just the two of us, and we live pretty simply. But yeah, so we like got to the point where it's like, this is working. And I started kind of trying to grow it. And part of that process of growing it to make money was learning about different ways to monetize a blog. I had been aware of sponsored posts, which is like when a company reaches out to you and offers you like usually a flat rate to write an article about their product or their company. I had done that, but it was kind of really sporadic because it was just whenever they would offer me a post. And so once I learned about sidebar ads and how those are really more traffic based, you get like a certain amount of money for every however many page views you get on your blog. I realized that could be a little bit more of a steady income. But then I also learned about other things like paid social media posts. I just kind of like diversified, and affiliate income was another one. And at some point, I want to say maybe around 2014, so maybe a couple years after I had been doing Emily Reviews full time, I started a second blog to try to diversify even further. And so that's kind of the short story, at least. I'm about 13 years into this now, which is kind of crazy. Technically have 4 blogs now, but only 2 of them that I depend on for income. It has changed a lot over the years. The things that I focus on now aren't the same things that I was focusing on even like 2 or 3 years ago, and those things were different than what I was focusing on like 10 years ago. You definitely have to like keep up with changes in social media and in blogging, but I really like doing this, and it's a really neat outlet, and it's definitely possible. I think there are definitely people out there who still think that it's not possible to make a living this way. There's definitely a lot of content out there that will try to kind of sell you this fantasy of quit your day job today and you know you can make 6 figures tomorrow, and that's not true. Blogging isn't a get rich quick scheme. I don't even think it's a get rich ever scheme for 99.99% of people, but if you're creative enough and if you're open to really learning about it, it definitely can be a real job. I mean, I've been doing it for most of my adult life now. So yeah, that's kind of my story.